I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the murder of Madeline Soto, a young girl from Florida murdered after her 13th birthday party. This tragedy is heartbreaking on one hand and absolutely horrific on the other. Here's her story. Madeline Soto had just turned 13. She had a party Sunday, February 25th, 2024. The party wasn't at her house, but at the home of a relative. Her mom, Jenn Soto, couldn't go to the party because she was working. So Madeline's aunt dropped her off at home. That night, Jen's on-again, off-again boyfriend, Stephan was at the house to watch Madeline. Jenn got home around 10. At around 11, Jenn went to sleep and told Stephan to go to sleep with Madeline in the guest bedroom upstairs. That was the last time Jenn saw Madeline alive. Stephan says he dropped Madeline off at school in the morning, but Madeline never made it to school. She was murdered and discarded about 20 miles from her home. Prosecutors have charged Stephan with that murder, but they've also charged him with something else. Years of sexual abuse. They say they found incriminating images of Stearns abusing Madeline on his Google Drive. Abuse that goes back more than 4 years. Meanwhile, newly released interviews with Madeline's young friends reveal new insight into this tragic case. These interviews with Madeline's friends are eye-opening, to say the least, and we want to take a listen to parts of those. But I want to begin by playing for you an interview with Madeline's mother, Jenn. And Jenn was interviewed many times during the course of all this. And what's really interesting here is the detectives' questions about Madeline and what was going on with her, because they had information about what Stephan Stearns was allegedly doing to Madeline. Take a listen.
She didn't die naturally. She didn't overdose. She didn't have a heart attack. We circled murder on Monday. Something had to cause that. He's been having unrestricted sexual activity for a long time. He's getting what he wants from her, probably from you, and who knows whoever else, right? So it's not like he woke up or went to bed Sunday and he was like, you know what? I'm done with this, but I'm going to kill her. Something happened. We can go even worse. She's pregnant.
That's what questions last night led me to believe.
Have you ever found a pregnancy test at home that wasn't yours?
I have two underneath the bathroom sink, but I haven't seen if they're still there or not.
Okay. But you haven't seen any used ones in the trash?
No.
So you see where the detective is going here. The detective's trying to figure out, like, what happened to Madeline and why did it happen? And he knows at this point that she's been systematically sexually abused for years by Stephan Stearns. So the detective's questions bring us to our first question of our investigation. Was Madeline pregnant? Just turned 13. But was Madeline pregnant? Joining me, Court TV digital content producer who knows everything about this case, Lauren Silver, is with us, and author and certified mental health counselor who specializes in child abuse, neglect, and trauma, Sharonda Brown, is with us. Thank you both for being here. Before we start talking about this, I want to play a little piece of the interview of one of Madeline's friends. This is Madeline's, we're calling her friend number 1. Let's take a listen.
Leading up to that, did Maddie talk to you about if she was feeling ill or sick or anything like that?
No, but I did notice that she was wearing more baggy clothes than usual. Like, usually her, I don't know if this is weird or anything. I didn't notice that. I'm a hairstyle person. But usually she'd wear hoodies that were baggy, not really that baggy. And then I noticed she started wearing more baggy clothes and more longer hoodies.
Gotcha. Any idea why?
I didn't think anything of it. I was like, well, she loves hoodies, so she probably is wearing oversized hoodies.
Lauren, you know, from the beginning of this case and this investigation, a lot of people have been asking this question. And we haven't heard anything, though, right, from any sort of discovery that's been revealed, any medical reports or anything else that would indicate that Madeline was necessarily pregnant.
No, the only medical information we have about Madeline's death comes from references to the coroner's report within other documents that we've gotten. The coroner's report itself is sealed. In Florida, that is unusual, but it's because this is considered a domestic violence case. So because she is a minor and this is a domestic violence case, that autopsy report is sealed. I would imagine it is in there that we would find out whether or not she was pregnant. It wouldn't have been far enough along, really, for her to be visible from everything I've been reading through these documents. But if she was, it would be within that document that's still impounded.
Sharonda Brown, let's talk about this 13-year-old girl, Madeline Soto, and her friends notice, okay, she's starting to wear baggy clothes. What does that tell you, if anything, about what was going on in Madeline's life as a new teenager, right? She's just turning 13 at the time.
When teenagers are coming into their bodies, they're going through so many changes in and of themselves. So sometimes there's some shame around different body parts, growing and developing. Sometimes their breast gets bigger, their hips get spread. And then other times, if there is some type of sexual abuse or trauma, they will present to be less attractive. They will try their best to wear baggy clothes so that they won't be as revealing, especially if their perpetrator notices them curving out or growing into their breasts. They may want to do things to look less attractive. So you may see them wear more baggy clothes or to be, less revealing because they don't want to provoke or turn on anybody, for less of better terms.
And Lauren, as we take a look at the way investigators are going about questioning people, including Madeline's friends and Jenn Soto, it seems clear that they are very curious about this potential fact, about whether or not Madeline may or may not have been pregnant at the time she disappeared, and as we know now, the time that she was murdered.
And the friends are a really critical part of this because a 13-year-old girl is a lot more likely to talk to their friends about some things than perhaps their parents or a teacher or an adult, especially if that adult is molesting them. So they did approach the friends. They had lengthy conversations with the friends, and one did say that they had discussed their menstrual cycles. Their menstrual cycles were aligned, but she had been late in January. The friend did say that she did eventually get her period in January, but she couldn't say whether or not she got it in February or not. Of course, it is February when she disappeared and then was found dead.
Let's take a listen, because that's a different friend who's talking about that. We're referring to this one as Madeline's friend number 3. Let's listen.
You and Maddie kind of were maybe on the same cycle.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay. And in the interview with Detective Payne, you said that Maddie may have gotten her period later on.
Yeah.
Was that in February or January?
January.
January, okay. Did you two discuss at all about February's?
Not really.
Okay, all right. Because I think you also mentioned to him when she doesn't get it, she's kind of moody?
Yeah.
Or, okay. Did it appear that way when you guys were at the birthday party or the weeks leading up to it?
At the birthday party.
Okay, how about this, Sharonda? And, her friends talking about her, she gets kind of moody when she misses it. What are your thoughts about what you can read into any of this?
I think it's really hard to say if that is directly tied to maybe a fear of being pregnant or not. I think when you're hormonal, when you're going through those changes, you're going to have mood swings anyway. And then when you are being sexually abused, you're going to be irritable, you're going to have mood swings. And I think that those things maybe coincide more so than the belief that, oh, if I don't get my cycle, that means I'm pregnant. I think that the discomfort of someone bothering you or touching you inappropriately can make you irritable, can make make you worried. And then there are times where, let's say, if the cycle is coinciding with an act or with a behavior, let's say the abuser is checking for your cycle, those things may trigger some things, because it's very common for abusers to check your cycle often, because it tells them when they can perpetrate on you and when they cannot. So it could be a possibility that she felt a lot of different ways or a lot of different triggers, and it doesn't necessarily mean that she was expecting a pregnancy or thinking that she may have been pregnant.
And as we heard, her friend was talking about her mood at her birthday party, which is really the last day of Madeline's life, tragically. So coming up next, how was Madeline behaving at her birthday party?
What was the last thing, I guess, the conversation that you two had, you and your daughter?
We spoke about her birthday party. She had a birthday party on Sunday.
A true crime tragedy out of Tennessee.
This case is unlike anything I've ever been involved in.
A 15-month-old Evelyn Boswell goes missing and is later found dead on her family's compound.
Her own teenage mother charged with little Evelyn's murder.
This little girl was let down by everyone in her life who was supposed to protect her.
What was the last thing, I guess, the conversation that you two had, you and your daughter?
We spoke about her birthday party. She had a birthday party on Sunday. She had a great time. I couldn't make it because I was working, but she had an amazing time. She was so happy with all her gifts. I told her good night, and yeah, that was it.
Madeline Soto's last day on earth was her 13th birthday party. And her mom wasn't there, but her mom said, yeah, it seemed like it was a good time. And that was what we were taking away from it, that she was having a good time. And then we saw some of the photos that were posted on social media of Madeline, and it looks like, yeah, it's a normal day. She got dressed up. She put on her special dress for her special day, for her special birthday party as she becomes a teenager, 13 years old. But now we're starting to hear from Madeline's friends from these interviews that have been released. And all of that brings us to the next question in our investigation, which is about the birthday party. How was Madeline behaving at her birthday party? What was really happening? How was she really acting? Still with us, Court TV's Lauren Silver and certified mental health counselor Sharonda Brown. So I want to play, before we do some analysis of all this, I want to play friend number 3 describing that birthday party, because friend number 3 was there. Let's take a listen.
So you two were basically the only friends that were there at the birthday party. How was she during the birthday party? Was she outgoing, happy?
When I got there, she kind of changed her mood, but I got the first one of her friends to get there, but she was kind of on me for stuff. Like, she would kind of get mad at anything I asked.
Like what? What would you ask her that would make her mad?
There was, like, food there, and I didn't know what the food was, so I asked, and after, like, 3 times of asking, she got mad at me asking. Okay. We were playing red light, green light, and she got mad because I wasn't standing in the correct spot, and it would just be about really little things.
Did she say anything else was bothering her during her birthday party?
Oh yeah, she had told her friends, like, literally, like, she told all of us, like, the day before her party. So she was mad that no one could make it because everyone was, like, out of town or, like, they couldn't make it.
And she was upset at that?
Yeah.
Who all from Maddie's family was there? Was there a lot? Or?
Yeah, there was a lot. I can't.
Okay. Did Maddie say what time she was leaving the party to you guys, or what time she was going to go home?
I had asked her when the party was going to end before I had cake, because she was asking. And she said, I don't know, this party could last till like midnight or like 1 a.m. The last boyfriend was not at the party.
Okay. Did Maddie mention to you that he was going to be at the house when she got home or anything like that? No. Did she mention to you about mom? Was mom working, or why wasn't mom at the party?
No, she didn't mention the mom at all.
Okay. Did she seem like she was upset at the mom? At her mom?
No, but I kind of figured that's why she was mad at the party.
Because her mom wasn't there.
Yeah. When I first got to the party, she got mad because I didn't have a gift.
Okay.
Which I had already given my gift to her at school, but she had said where's the rest? Mm-hmm. And I gave her this really big bag of full of stuff. And I was like, what do you mean, where's the rest? And she was like, you said that there were gonna be a whole bunch of stuff as a joke. And then so where's the rest of the stuff? And I was like, this is it. So when I showed up to her party, she was like, I barely got any gifts, and I was surprised I didn't get a gift from you. And I was like, but I already gave you my gift at school. So, and then at the end of the party, when me and were leaving, she got mad at me because I didn't shake all of her family members' hands to say goodbye, which I kind of was oh, bye. And then I left, and then as I was crossing the street and stuff, she got mad. She was like, I always get in trouble after you leave because you don't say goodbye to everyone. And I was like, I say goodbye, I just don't say it very loud.
Did she always have these kind of mood swings, I guess you could say, Colin?
Yeah.
Okay, Sharonda Brown, are you hearing anything that's unusual from the way she's acting? She's a 13-year-old girl. We know now this is her last day on Earth. We know she's going to go missing and found murder after this party. We know that she's been sexually abused for years. But are you hearing anything unusual about her behavior at the party?
I think the behavior when it comes to how she talks to her friends, how vocal she is with her expectations, it's really difficult for teenagers who are being sexually abused to keep friendships and maintain friendships because of their level of expectations. Most of the time when they're feeling neglected or feeling abused, they do look for their friends to be the compensation for that. And so when I'm hearing you didn't bring a gift or you didn't bring as many gifts, you didn't shake everybody's hand. So that's that compensation that I'm hearing. The other thing that I'm hearing is that there may be some other type of emotional abuse if, in fact, she's in trouble when her friends don't say goodbye properly. So that stood out to me. And then also not believing that people cared, because she sounded like she was really bothered from the beginning that friends couldn't make it, her mother wasn't there, and so it didn't go as she expected, which again brings her back to that sense of loneliness, or she has to depend on someone else who potentially may be her abuser. So I heard a lot of that going on. So that's more typical than a 13-year-old who was upset that she didn't get the party she wanted. There were a couple of layers there that screamed neglect, that screamed abuse, that screamed entitlement or anger of some kind.
And Lauren, the other part that's very strange about this birthday party, it's at a relative's house. It's not at her house. Her mother's not there, and Stephan Stearns isn't there. These are the two adults who are in her life, for better or for worse, but these are the two adults who are in her life, but aren't at the party. What's more of the backstory of all of that?
Well, we know Jenn had to work, and one of the friends did suggest that perhaps Madeline was upset that her mother couldn't be there. Stephan Stearns was not welcome there. In an interview that Jenn did with police, she made it clear that her mother did not like Stephan. Not that there was anything to be suspected at that point, but she did not like Stephan, and he was not welcome at her home. So any family event would not have included Stephan. Also, as far as other friends, the one friend said Madeline was upset other friends couldn't come. The other friend number one who was interviewed said she hadn't been invited. So there is a discrepancy about how many friends were actually invited. Maybe she thought that they were invited and they weren't actually, but that part's a little unclear as well.
So Sharonda Brown, how about that part where you've got two adults in her life, her mother, obviously, and then Stephan Stearns, who has been referred to as her stepfather by her mother, but they're never married, but has been referred to that by Jenn, aren't at the party. What do you think? And then the dynamic between Jenn's family and Stephan Stearns, the man accused now of molesting her and killing her. What are your thoughts about all of that?
I think that for a 13-year-old girl to not have her mother at her party is really crucial. It's really important. And I realize that her mom had to work, but there are times where mothers will take off work or plan the party on a day that they don't have to work. And I think the information of pushing, Stephan to the room and putting him out the room, I think that coincides with this neglect of, again, my mother isn't here. Again, my mother has pushed me off to someone else or to do something else. I do know that from working with youth, those things are really important to them. They do know when someone's not there. They do recognize when someone's not paying attention to them, and they bring it up quite a bit, and it carries with them for the rest of their life. So I wouldn't downplay the fact that mom was not there. I think that may be very crucial to this young lady's identity.
And how about grandma's intuition, right? Madeline's grandmother, Jenn's mother, didn't like Stephan Stearns. What are your thoughts about mom's intuition there?
I think that most people know when a predator is in a room, or even when they're paying attention to body language. And I think that that's really important and crucial to note, because most people, when they feel uncomfortable, they'll notice it, they'll say it, and sometimes they'll give people the benefit of the doubt. But when you talk about elderly or people who are paying attention, they can tell a predator most of the time. And so to say, hey, I don't feel comfortable with this thing being around, I don't think he should be here, which means that they know something. They've seen something, they witnessed something, and at some point didn't believe that mom set the boundary. So it was up to them to do that. So I think it was a good decision to keep her safe whenever they could.
Big thank you, Sharonda Brown. Great insight as always. Lauren Silver's going to stay with us. Up next, did Madeline believe she was in a relationship with Stephan? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the murder of Madeline Soto, who had just celebrated her 13th birthday when she was killed. What happened to this young girl was unthinkable. Years of sexual abuse under her own roof, allegedly by the man who killed her, her mom's boyfriend. Here's her story. Madeline Soto's life was difficult. Her dad lived out of state, so she was being raised by her mom, Jenn Soto. Jenn had an on-again, off-again relationship with a man named Stephan Stearns. Stearns didn't work much. He didn't own much, so he spent a lot of time over the years living in the house with Jenn and Madeline. Then, in a strange arrangement, Stearns would sometimes sleep with Jenn and Madeline, and sometimes with just Madeline alone. Jenn says she didn't suspect anything was going on, but when Madeline went missing and was found murdered, detectives told Jenn Stearns had pictures on his phone of Madeline being sexually abused by Stearns. Her reaction is raised eyebrows and some suspicion, but Jenn hasn't been charged with anything, while Stearns has been charged with abusing and murdering Madeline and is facing a potential death sentence. The detectives in this case, I think, really did an amazing job of zeroing in on all the relevant issues in their interviews and the way they approached this case, and especially in the way that they interviewed Jenn Soto and the things that they questioned her about. Take a listen.
The videos, the text messages, the images, they're all documented forever. This has been an ongoing thing. And at her age, I think she probably thought they were in a relationship. She probably thought they were in love. At the same time, you guys are sleeping in the same bed together. You guys are all cohabitating. She's not sleeping in her room. But you felt the need to establish a rule that they couldn't sleep in the same room. But when you established that rule, for 3 years, she's already been dating him, essentially.
Interesting insight from the detective, believing that Madeline may have believed she was in a relationship with Stephan. Which brings us to the next question in our investigation. It's exactly what the detective's talking about. Did Madeline believe she was in a relationship with Stephan? And she's 13 at the time. This has been ongoing year after year after year after year. Joining me, Court TV, digital content producer, knows the facts of the case inside out, Lauren Silver, and psychotherapist and CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey. Thank you both. I want to play a little bit of one of Madeline's friends. And again, this is, you know, young girls speaking to each other about what's going on in their lives and now being interviewed by detectives. Let's take a listen. This is Madeline friend number 1.
Did she ever talk about having any boyfriends or anything like that?
She had a crush.
Oh, no.
Boyfriends. Oh, no. She did date a dude, but it wasn't last. Like he's weird. I don't know if he talks about him. He doesn't.
When was this?
It was like last year.
Oh, okay.
I don't know who she's dated since then. Really, I'm not huge when I see my friends with their relationship. But I know she had a crush on the dude. I remember my friends did tell me, like, she did talk about her friend, like her stepdad, but it was only like good things. It was never, oh, I don't want to go home or anything, or like anything like that. It was always compliments for her stepdad. And as someone with a stepdad, I never thought anything of it.
Okay, Lauren, what have we been able to gather from these interviews and the other evidence about Madeline's state of mind and her thoughts about her stepdad? He's not really a stepdad, but, you know, as they refer to as the stepdad. What have we been able to figure out here?
He is referred to in many of the court documents as stepfather, mother's boyfriend. So unclear how she saw that relationship. It was on again, off again, and she had told her friends that he had moved out shortly before her death. But as far as how she felt about him, not completely clear, but all positive from what I can tell. Her friends said that she spoke well of him, all positive things, all good things. They never had any reason to think anything other than a positive family home. And they actually noted that they were constantly on the phone. So 13-year-olds love using their phone, and she would talk to friends and Stephan. And outside of her best friends, it was Stephan that was the number one person she was talking to, according to those friends.
Dr. Janie Lacey, how about that? How does a 13-year-old interpret 4 years at least, it could be more than 4 years, of ongoing sexual abuse, yet you have like this saying good things and on the phone with him and referring to him as stepdad? What do you think is going through her mind about what is this relationship?
Well, Vinnie, when there are victims of sexual abuse who are minors, there's usually a grooming process that happens. And I have no doubt that that's probably the case with Madeline Soto. So when we think about this, we're looking at like the abusers. They have this systematic way to desensitize the victims through gradual boundary violations, right? So, and they can often frame the abuse as special relationship or love and start using some of these types of words to Madeline. And he can potentially have given her gifts and gave her special attention, which can create confusion about the nature of their interaction. So when we're thinking about the abuser, Stephan, there's manipulation tactics that he's probably used. In these cases, right, sometimes they can say you're mature for your age, and they can use words like us against the world. And he can also probably have used guilt or to maintain secrecy. So he can have normalized his inappropriate behaviors that were gradual over time. And we think about her developmental stage, minors, they don't have the full emotional and cognitive maturity to understand healthy relationships or to even recognize manipulation, right? Because their brain is still developing. So we're looking at all of these dynamics. But there's also something that was probably key when we're thinking about her looking at him or reported that good comments and these types of things, and potentially looking at him as a relationship, is there's a power dynamic, right? So when we look at trauma bonding in particular, the abuser can create this environment where they can isolate, where he isolated her and he became the primary source of her emotional connection, especially if mom was away. So we'll see the alternation between abuse and affection, which creates this very strong psychological bond. So could she, in her mind, also been able to protect herself to cope with the trauma and think that there was a relationship? Absolutely. We see this all the time in these dynamics.
Let's take a listen to another friend. This is Madeline's friend, referring to her as number 3, talking about Madeline and Stephan Stearns.
Have you ever met this guy, her mom's boyfriend?
I went over to her house like once or twice and he was there. I met him in person once.
Okay. Did she ever talk about him?
I knew she was on call with him a lot, and I knew that she had told me that he'd moved out of like the house. Mm-hmm. And one day I had asked to hang out with her, and we had made plans like a week or two before. Mm-hmm. And then the day of, I wake up to a text message, and it was like, "Hey, I can't. My stepfather's coming, and we're gonna hang out together for the day."
Okay. Did she seem like she had a good relationship with him?
Yeah, they seemed pretty tight. They seemed really close.
Okay. Did she ever mention anything that may have been weird to you about him or mom?
Other than that they were like really close and that they were like always on call.
How about that, Dr. Jenny Lacey? The observations of another child saying, well, they were really, really tight, like really close. Like it seemed like the child thought it was a lot more than most children with a parent.
Well, when children are intuitive and they can know when something is off, so that's what I'm hearing when I'm hearing the conversation from her friends. And I also think about potentially him exploiting her normal developmental needs, right? So if mom was away and working or tired or whatever the potential situation was with her, then, it's natural for a teenager or a preteen to have this desire for acceptance and belonging. And it's also natural for them to want us as adults to approve and validate. So then mom has this boyfriend that's in and out of the home who's taking care of Madeline, who's helping with the needs and these types of things. And we also know at this age, there's a natural emerging interest in romantic relationships. So there's this desire to feel mature and special. So that can absolutely have been exploited during that grooming process. So her friends and their conversation and picking up on these types of dynamics in their intuitive nature, knowing something is off and expressing it age appropriately would probably be spot on.
Speaking about age appropriate, again, just turning 13, there's a drawing from, it appears, one of her notebooks, very graphic drawing that appears to be done by Madeline. One part of it, we're blurring it out, is a male genitalia right next to female genitalia. And then another one is a man standing and a woman on her knees in front of the man, and no one is wearing clothes in any of this. Does that tell you anything, Dr. Jenny Lacey?
Yeah, it makes me feel very sad as I look at that, because what that would tell me is that there was an image in her head because of potentially what was happening to her, and her documenting that, right? So there's a mirroring that occurs for things that have happened to children, and then what they will process in their mind, and then using it through art therapy, or using it to other types of ways to get it out of their mind. So it makes me feel very sad when we see those images, because more than likely those are the things that were occurring to this precious little girl.
All right, Dr. Jenny Lacey is going to stay with us. Big thank you to Lauren Silver, working overtime for us tonight. We thank you so, so much. You can read all of her work on courttv.com. Amazing stuff. Okay, still to come. What was the nature of Jenn and Stephan's relationship?
We missed him, and I wanted to help him out.
It was the biggest story in the world.
People saw the facts differently.
Somebody manufactured evidence in this case.
This was kind of a crazy spectacle.
This case is a circus. He was an icon.
They are in for the fight of their lives.
Everybody thinks you're guilty.
Trial and Error. Why did O.J. win? A Court TV original series. Premieres February 16th. Only on Court TV.
He's not a very clean guy. He's kind of a little hoarder and a collector. So just my house was always a mess and never the way that I wanted it to look. Or the clutter just gave me anxiety. So I asked him to move upstairs, and he did. And he lived upstairs until until December of last year. And then he moved to Northport, Florida with his parents. But they had promised him a job, but that fell through. So we were in the process of trying to get him to come back up here to get his job back at Disney and for him to move back into the house for a little bit. And I'm not sure long term. I know temporarily I was willing to accept him back.
Was that something out of convenience for him or because you?
A little bit of both. We missed him, and I wanted to help him out.
We missed him. I wanted to help him out. What was going on here? What exactly was going on? You know, this dynamic between Stephan Stearns and Jenn Soto has been bizarre from the beginning. It all began with those interviews that we saw, including the one on WFTV. Really strange dynamic there going on. I want to play for you an interview that was done with one of Jenn's friends. And this is someone, you know, in Jenn's life, but from the outside looking at Stephan Stearns and looking at this relationship. Take a listen.
And then she hooked up with that guy.
Okay.
Stephan. And I, again, just trying to remember, we probably knew them maybe another 4 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we didn't like him.
You didn't like Stephan, or why not?
He was a scumbag.
Oh, yeah.
We knew. Not that he would do that.
Right.
Never. I never had that, you know. But he didn't have a job.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't hold a job. Was proud about painting these stupid little plastic soldiers.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, I was just like, I resented that he got, I don't know how he stayed alive. You know, most of us have to work.
Right.
And I resented that. I resented it, right? So that he had the time to do that. I think, so then they moved, I believe. I think they moved north, but I'm not sure. He found a job. So they left, and I thought, so then Courtney tells me that they had to move back. I guess he lost his job. I don't know. And I thought they had split up at that point.
Okay.
Honestly, I thought they had split up. And I know Courtney said at that point they were having some issues. And Courtney said to Jenn, leave him. You know, you don't do that. Right? You don't usually interfere in somebody's business like that.
Right.
But he was pretty bad enough that she was like, leave him. Now, we didn't. So we hardly knew, you know, them once he entered their life.
Gotcha. Did they ever spend any time out here? Have they ever come here to visit?
She did come. Maddie came, not him. He never came here.
Okay.
We would never. I mean, I'm telling you, not like that guy.
Fascinating, right? Leave him. Leave him. Once he came in, we didn't see her much. I didn't like him. He was weird. We're trying to figure out how he lived, right? Like, what did he do? All of this is strange, right? Brings us to the next question in our investigation. It's about these two. What was the nature of Jenn and Stephan's relationship? This was not normal. Not even close to normal. Joining me, investigative reporter for WFTV, has been following this case from the beginning. Shannon Butler is with us, and still with us, psychotherapist Dr. Janie Lacey. Okay, Shannon Butler, how would you describe the nature of Jenn and Stephan's relationship?
Well, over the course of this entire case, we described it differently because more and more things would come out. When we first met them in that first interview we did at their home, and at the time Madeline was just missing, it seemed at that point they were boyfriend, girlfriend, or fiance. They've changed the story a bit on what their relationship. So in the beginning, we thought, well, this is a couple. But as things started to kind of come about, they were on again and off again. That we know. But at this time, it took us a while to learn that they were actually off again when all of this happened. But we thought it was so strange because he.
Okay, I think we've lost Shannon's connection. We'll try to get that back to you in just a second. Dr. Jenny Lacey, I want to read this to you. This is Jen's friend, Angelica. Angelica stated that she had another conversation with Jennifer about her sexual interactions or lack thereof with Stephan. Angelica said they didn't have sexual relations often, and that is why she didn't want to be with him any longer. Then there was an interview of Jennifer about all of this. I asked Jennifer to explain her and Stephan's sex life, which she described as vanilla. Stephan would want to have the type of sex that's not traditional with Jennifer, but she said she didn't want to. So explain this to me, Dr. Jenny Lacey. Why is Jenn with this guy? No sex. He's got no job. He's got no money. He likes to play with his little toys. He creates a mess in the house. He's not exactly a looker. I've seen the guy without a shirt on. He's not going to the gym and working out. And he's very, I don't know if she knew about the abuse or not, so I can't say anything about there. But why would she be with a guy like this? Why would she have this guy in her home? Why would she be happy that he came back after not getting another job?
No, I can make a lot of assumptions here, Vinny, and one of my main assumptions in these types of dynamics was, or is, that he probably found something in Jenn that she really needed. And my assumption based off of what we know of this case would probably be he came in, was very helpful and supportive. And especially if she, as a single mom, had all these different dynamics. So he was there taking care of Madeline, probably running errands, and probably she became dependent on him for that help. So in these situations, when women are not getting their needs met sexually, like you just read in the statement, it could have been other things that she found important. So then overlooking that there was a part of their relationship that was not healthy in that sense. And usually when predators or people that are abusers, they will prey on single mothers, and they have these trust building tactics. So they study and they kind of come in and find out what she needs help with, or they listen. They're really good at listening because they're collecting information when they're listening. So I would imagine in this dynamic that that's probably why Jenn was happy that he came back, because when he's gone, then she has to take care of her daughter. She has to run the errands. She has to do whatever the things that he was bringing to the relationship were now falling on her. And with her daughter, I would imagine, Madeline was used to Stephan taking care of her, because when predators are building relationships with mothers, they're also simultaneously building relationships with the children. They almost become this father figure. They'll pick them up from school. They're involved in their activities. And then they create these opportunities for that trusted alone time.
All right. We're out of time for tonight. Sorry we disconnected from Shannon, but we have her back now. Thanks so much, Shannon Butler and Dr. Jenny Lacey. Now, when Stephan Stearns entered the lives of Madeline and Jenn Soto, everything changed. A little girl's innocence was shattered. Now, Stearns is presumed innocent, but according to investigators, the images on his phone are clear. Little Madeline was sexually abused by an adult man over the course of years. Then that little girl's life was ended. And again, Stearns is presumed innocent, but the evidence is clear. She was murdered. Now the question is, will a jury hold Stephan Stearns responsible? I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.